Thank you, Andrew. Welcome to Bryn Mawr Film Institute. Today demonstrates who we are, and I know there are a lot of you in the audience who don't know who we are, as well as some of our friends who do. Today, this afternoon, we gave a course on Renoir's Grand Illusion at the Barnes Foundation. And this evening, we honored David Lynch, the preeminent modern film illusionist. And all day, we've been showing great films in our 4 new state-of-the-art theaters. David Lynch makes dreams come to life on screen. While we, our tens of thousands of donors, our members, and our hardworking staff have made this dream of a theater a reality using bricks and mortar. So tonight we honor David Lynch both for his art on canvas and more particularly for his art on cellular acetate. You know, this summer I saw about 50 films between Cannes and Toronto, and I have to say that there was not one that was as interesting or challenging or inviting in some ways as the films of David Lynch that I've been watching all week. We are in for a great treat, and we have many people to thank, but I will call out only a few. Marcia Perlman and her husband Jeffrey Perlman are to be thanked for their generous support of this evening. And the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts is to be heartily thanked for partnering with us to bring David Lynch to Bryn Mawr. Curator Bob Cozzolino is with us tonight, and I'd like him to come up and say a few words to all of you.
Thank you, Juliet. It's a pleasure to introduce David Lynch to you tonight and to have him here in Bryn Mawr. As some of you know, he's been here all week, and he has been extraordinarily generous with his time. This is a man who prefers to be working, that's when he's happiest, and being with his family and friends, and he doesn't make very many public appearances anymore unless it's to talk about TM. I'm sure he'll indulge you if Carrie asks him about that tonight, and maybe if she doesn't even ask him about it. But so I want to just stress how unusual it is that he has agreed to do so many public appearances this week, and I think it's a testament to how important Philadelphia has been to David Lynch in his life, in his vision, as a continual source of inspiration. And the Pennsylvania Academy, when we started to organize this exhibition, one of the first things that I thought of was the idea of partnering with people in the community, because it was important to David Lynch that his exhibition at PAFA focus on him as an artist, and that was important to me too, because it's underknown. So who best to do the films but the experts in the community, like the Bryn Mawr Film Institute, the Philadelphia Film Society, and International House. Philadelphia Mausoleum of Contemporary Art and the Eraserhood is also a partner. But it was Valerie Temple here that I reached out to earliest, or maybe she even reached out to me and said, we would love to do something. It was this institution, really, that was the first solidified partner. I knew that they had been dedicated to doing art and film. Red Grooms was here not too long ago, a couple years ago. And also they did a great program about an Alice Neal documentary that her grandson had done in conjunction with the female gaze at PAFA. So they've always been great partners. I hope there will be great partners in the future. And one of the things that my friends in other cities always ask me is, what's it like to work in the arts in Philadelphia? And I say the same thing. It is the one place that I found the entire community in the arts to be mutually supportive over and over and over again, and it's genuine. And so this whole collaboration has really drawn that out. So thanks, Bryn Mawr Film Institute, and enjoy David Lynch, and come see the Unified Field through January 11th.
Thank you. We absolutely will come to see the Unified Field. I can't wait to see it. And we'll understand it better because we'll understand David Lynch better, because we have perhaps the best person we could have dreamed up to interview him, our own Carrie Rickey. Carrie, we are proud to say, is a member of our board of directors, has been an art critic or a film critic all her life for vehicles such as the Philadelphia Inquirer, of course, and Art in America. She understands all forms of art like no one I know, and I think she will uncover the mystery and the wonder of David Lynch. So everyone, welcome Carrie Rickey.
Thank you, Juliet. Thank you, Bob, for organizing such a wonderful exhibition. And because I think we all need to have a little bit of a Lynch 101, let's watch some clips before we bring David Lynch out. Run the clips.
And out in the light, and they go out and get a barbie, and they start going. And see that, and you get up, and you get up, and the bun, and you start on fire, and you start, and then you get a bun, and it's getting. And then that's, and then you know. And it, and it, you start, and you start, and it, front, and you hit shot. And you get your character on spirit.
Ladies and gentlemen, master of light and shadow, colorist of ruby reds and velvet blues, the guy that Mel Brooks called Jimmy Stewart from Mars, David Lynch.
Hello.
I have to say that the last time we met, we both were blonder.
Uh-huh.
I like your new hair color, too.
Jack Nance used to say, who was star of Eraserhead, that Lynch is the kind of guy that's going to have this sickening yellow-gray hair. So it might be going blonde.
First off, love the show. It was really a privilege to see all your work together, or not all of it, but much of it.
Thank you.
And when I was at the show, I was thinking, was there a moment you were in a museum or a place and you had a transcendent experience with art or painting?
Yes. When I was a student here at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, we heard that Francis Bacon was having a show at the Marlborough Gallery in New York, and we took a road trip up there, and that show was what you described.
Can you describe the painting, or
I mean, I think you all know Francis Bacon's work, but seeing it in person for the first time was a real thrill, and it was very powerful to me, and carried with me to this day.
Okay. In around 1986, before the release of Blue Velvet, you and I spoke about the impact of Philadelphia and the Academy of Fine Arts, and the effect it had on you. And you said it was a strange life. For the first time, I really lived beneath the surface. I was never aware of anything normal. I was only aware of a world of fear and art. I lived inside a cocoon of fear and hope. Can you tell us how the city inspired and enabled you to see and paint what was hidden before?
It wasn't. I'm sure I did say that, but
I've got the tapes.
Philadelphia, to me, I always say, was my biggest influence. This city, and the time of this city when I was here. So, when I was here, from '65 to '70, the city there was no graffiti, and the buildings seemed to be covered with a black soot. It was a filthy city, and it had a feeling of industry. It had, to me, the most beautiful architecture, row houses that reminded me sort of factory neighborhoods, working neighborhoods. And the streets were narrow, the buildings were all soot covered, the clouds hung low, and it had a beautiful mood. In the atmosphere, there was fear, there was violence, there was despair and sadness, there was a feeling of insanity, and kind of a knowledge of corruption. And this kind of seeped into me with this architecture and made an influence, which I loved, by the way.
It was certainly different from the wide open spaces and fresh air of Spokane and Missoula, I assume, where you grew up.
Yeah, I grew up in the Northwest, a lot of time in the woods, small towns, relatively speaking, and it was real blue skies, picket fence, mowed lawns kind of world with a lot of hope and chrome.
Could you describe the aha moment you had at PAFA as a student there when you made the leap from still pictures to pictures that moved?
I've told this story a bunch, maybe you've heard it, but I was painting, mostly I painted where I lived, and that lived in the beginning at 13th and Wood. But I did have a cubicle in the old school building. The students had little cubicles, little private little places to paint. And I was in that room in my cubicle one night, painting a painting that was mostly black, but it had some green, a garden. It was a garden at night. And I sat back and had a smoke looking at this, and from the painting came a wind, and the green began to move. And I said, oh, a moving painting.
And then you started, I saw in the exhibition a wonderful short you made of a gallery opening, and it had the pulsating music and the pulsating people.
Well, they weren't pulsating.
They seemed to be.
Well, that was my friend James Havard, his opening at the Vanderlip Gallery, and I had just gotten a new camera, and I had a roll of black and white film in it, and I kind of covered that opening for the show. And now they've gone and they've looked at the film, and they find out the names of everybody that's in that, and it's nice because a lot of those people have left Philadelphia, and now they know who they all are.
On the basis of Eraserhead, your first feature, which you made while you were at the American Film Institute in Los Angeles, Mel Brooks tapped you to direct The Elephant Man. Why did he pick an independent filmmaker of your particular vision to make a true life Victorian drama with John Gielgud and Anthony Hopkins?
This is one of the great mysteries of life.
I've read that that Mr. Brooks came out of a screening and said, "This guy's crazy, sign him." Is that true?
No.
Okay. Tell us the truth.
I had written a script after Eraserhead called Ronnie Rocket, and I was hoping to make that film. And one day a man called my house, and I wasn't there, but my second wife answered the phone, and when I did come home, she said a man named Stuart Kornfeld called. And for some reason, I loved that name, and I kept going around saying, Stuart Kornfeld called. And I guess I called him back, and he told me he loved Eraserhead, and he wanted to take me to lunch. So I went to lunch with Stuart and told him about Ronnie Rocket, and he tried to help me get something going, which never did happen. But Stuart worked with Mel Brooks, and I waited a long time to try to do Ronnie Rocket, but I came to a point where I needed to see if there were any scripts out there that I could direct. So I called Stuart and I said, Stuart, do you know of any scripts that I could direct? And he said, David, I know of 4 scripts that you could direct. And he says, come to Nibbler's and I'll tell you. So we went to this coffee shop, sat down, and before we even ordered, I said, Stuart, please tell me the names of these scripts. And Stuart said, okay, the first script is called The Elephant Man. And poof, a bomb went off in my head. I said, that's it. And so Christopher DeVore and Eric Berggren had written a script based on a chapter in a book called The Elephant Man and Other Reminiscences by a man named Frederick Treves, Dr. Frederick Treves. And we took that script, and me and Stuart and a man named Jonathan Sanger around to different studios to see if they would make this film. And we were turned down at 6 places. They said, no one wants to see a film about this monstrous person. But Stuart had given the script to Anne Bancroft, and she read it and loved it, and she gave it to Mel Brooks. And Mel Brooks said, I want this film to be the first film Brooks Films, his new company, will make. So he said, Stuart, you're in. Christopher DeVore and Eric Berggren, you guys are in. Jonathan, you're of course in. Well, who is this guy, David Lynch? And they said, well, you have to see his film, Eraserhead. And I heard this, and I said, it's been great knowing you guys. And so the screening was set up, and for some reason, I was asked to be outside when the film finished. And you can sort of imagine my condition. But the doors burst open, and here comes Mel Brooks running at me, arms wide open, saying, you're a madman, I love you, you're in.
Thank you for correcting. There are many painters and photographers who've segued into filmmaking, most famously John Cocteau, Andy Warhol, Julian Schnabel. Why do you think their art is very different from the films they make, and your art and your films, which have a lot of consistency and similarity?
I have no idea.
Okay.
People get ideas, and I always say that there's ideas for cinema, ideas for film or painting, and photography. And if you get an idea that you love, that's what you go and do.
Thank you. I could be blindfolded and still recognize just by the soundtrack of sound layered with music that it's one of your movies. What can sound do for a narrative that visuals cannot?
So much. That's from the very beginning, that experience I told you about. I heard a wind and I saw a movement. So for me, cinema is sound and picture moving together in time. And sound is, and it's at least half of cinema. It can do so much, and I always say there's sound effects, like footsteps, then there's abstract sounds that approach music, and then there's music. And with those three things, whole worlds can be built that go along and or married to the picture and make a full thing.
Blood red, sapphire blue, grass green, liver umber. The colors in your films are very memorable, and they kind of hit your nervous system without you realizing it. Which begs the question, for you, is there a language of color, and can you parse it for us?
No, I don't. A lot of people think, I've heard anyway, that they have a color palette. This film's going to be this, or this film's going to be that. And I don't think about that kind of thing. I try to stay true to the idea. And if you walk into a place, say you're looking for locations, based on the idea that came to you, you can easily say, no, that's not right, that's not right, that's not right. This one is just about right. And if we change this or do this, and it's all just the idea talking. You just follow the idea.
You have a lot of ideas involving red curtains, though.
I like, for some reason, I don't know what it is, but maybe it's true for all of us. There's a thing about curtains that when they open, they reveal something. And in the theater, in the cinema, when the lights go down and it gets quiet and you hear the curtains open and see them open, you have a chance to go into another world.
Thank you. Okay, light and shadow, blonde and brunette, good and evil, pastoral and urban. Your film narratives and your characters are always full of opposites. For me, these opposites are the conflicts that set your films in motion. For you, is that just a natural way of propelling a narrative, or how stories come to you?
Yeah, the way the ideas come. But I've heard a thing, knowledge and experience of combined opposites. And this is the story of the unified field, where opposites are together. They say infinite silence, infinite dynamism together in this unity beneath matter and mind. Opposites exist where we are, and a story is filled with opposites. But again, I don't even think about that. I just I get ideas, once in a while, a blessing of an idea I fall in love with, and follow that. And I think a person should understand what they're doing. The ideas come, and you first fall in love with the idea, and if they come in fragments, which they most often do, when the fragments come and start hooking together, it's building a script, and at a certain point you say, what does this mean? And it's something to think about, and they start talking to you, and a meaning comes. And this meaning, if you're true to the idea, the meaning can have harmonics. So there's probably something higher understanding that could be there if you're true to the understanding at the level you know. So it's very important to stay true to the ideas, then you could grow and come back and see the same thing and get even more from it. So that's why it's important to stay true to the idea.
Gotcha. You enjoyed maybe your greatest acclaim with the TV series Twin Peaks. And originally, Mulholland Drive was conceived as an episodic TV show before you retooled it into a feature film. How is television different from film, or are they?
I saw television just like cinema. The pilot for Twin Peaks was just exactly like making a film for me. What I discovered was that in some ways, network television is easier than cinema. Cinema is 2 hours or 3 hours of non-stop story, and you have to, the audience has to be with you. It's a thing. In television, in network television, there's some story and then a break, and then you come back and you go again, and that is very forgiving. It's not like a feature film. But now with cable television, there's more of that pull that has to be there. There's no commercials.
True enough. Is the most satisfying aspect of being an artist and filmmaker the ability to build your own world?
In a way, yeah. You build your own worlds based on the ideas that come, and those worlds can be so beautiful. I always say I would love to live in the world of Eraserhead. I'd like to get a house there and live with those people and spend time with them each day.
Okay. You wrote a wonderful book called Catching the Big Fish on the connections among meditation, consciousness, and creativity. Can you give us an example of meditation as an artistic tool you use for your work?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I practice transcendental meditation as taught by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And transcendental meditation is a mental technique, an ancient form of meditation that allows any human being to dive within. And since it's a mental technique, you dive within mind and then intellect. And they say the human being always wants to go to fields of greater happiness. So the mantra you get in transcendental meditation is like a law of nature designed for a specific purpose, and that mantra turns the awareness 180 degrees within. And then you naturally dive, because each deeper level of mind has more happiness, each deeper level of intellect has more happiness. So this happiness is pulling you within. At the border of intellect, you transcend, and you experience unbounded consciousness, the unified field, the self with a big capital S, home of total knowledge, being, totality, the reality, the source, Tao, the kingdom of heaven, all these names for this field within. And this field within is eternal. In Vedic language, it's called Nitya and Aparashaya, meaning eternal and uncreated. No one created this field. It's that field that never had a beginning. It is and it will be forever. And the human being transcending and experiencing that infuses some of that every time. So human beings have consciousness, but not everyone has the same amount. And if you transcend every day, you really and truly begin to expand that consciousness. And this consciousness has qualities, all positive. In that field, unbounded intelligence, unbounded creativity, unbounded happiness, unbounded love, unbounded energy, unbounded peace. You start infusing that, and there's a side effect. The side effect is negativity starts to lift away. Things like stress, traumatic stress, anxiety, tension, hate, anger, fear start to lift. So you live and work in more and more freedom. This heavy weight of negativity is killing us, and that starts to lift away. So I say gold coming in from within, garbage going out. It's such a blessing for the human being. You dive in there and get wet with that, intuition grows, creativity grows, ideas begin to flow more freely. The negativity constricts the flow of ideas. So you're getting rid of that negativity, that conduit, that the flow of those ideas can flow very freely. You get more happiness in the doing. You get more energy. People are so fatigued. And here you're diving into infinite energy. So you come out of meditation refreshed, happy in the doing, ideas flowing, and the world looks so beautiful day by day, getting even better. It's a beautiful thing for the human being.
Before Inland Empire, which was shot digitally, your features were shot on film. Does the medium matter?
There's lithography, there's photogravures, there's black and white photography, color photography, there's all different mediums, and ideas can come from each one of those things. And if you're working in lithography, the medium starts talking to you. You see what the ink does on the stone, and the way it works, and it starts a dialogue, and then ideas come to feed that for that medium. So it's like if you get an idea for Eraserhead or the Elephant Man, that's a black and white idea. If you get an idea for Blue Velvet, because it's got blue in the title, it's going to be color. And so every medium talks to you. Every medium is infinitely deep, and there's more and more and more ideas for each medium.
Okay. Before I ask Mr. Lynch questions that the audience has asked, I have to ask you one question. It's the Ingmar Bergman question. Yesterday, one of the London newspapers did a profile of two documentarians who were doing a movie about Ingmar Bergman's DVD collection. And they found in his personal collection, among his favorite movies was Sunset Boulevard, which is one of your favorite, but also Ghostbusters, The Blues Brothers, and the Goldie Hawn movie Foul Play. I wanted to ask you, are there things in your DVD collection that would be surprising to us?
Going to be a long night. I can't think of anything that's going to be really surprising to you.
Esther Williams?
I was in love with Esther Williams when I was in the 3rd grade. And I met Esther Williams at a restaurant in Hollywood. And I went up to her table and I told her that I was in love with her when I was in the 3rd grade. And she was happy to hear that. And then she said, "How come you made Isabella Rossellini show her beaver?"
That's my favorite fan story ever. Okay, I'm going to ask questions posed by members of the audience, and I'm going to ask you to stand when I call your name. Is Kendall Whitehouse here? Kendall, okay. Kendall asks, what stories would you have explored had Mulholland Drive been picked up as a television series as originally intended?
Kendall, the way I look at it, Mulholland Drive was always meant to be a feature. And it just went through a strange route to get there. And I love, though, a continuing story. I love the idea of a continuing story. But I don't really like to know so much in advance. I would like to have the chance to act and react and have it talk to me, and then see what's talking and see where to go. And I never really got that chance in Mulholland Drive. So I can't tell you. You bet.
Vernon Shetley? Is Vernon here? Okay, Vernon asks, could you say more about how you came to choose actors without their auditioning? What are you trying to learn when you talk with them? How in the world did you know that Naomi Watts could give the performance she did in Mulholland Drive?
And I don't know why, but I don't ever read. Sometimes I've been forced to, on Dune, I had to do, Dino had me do some tests for people. But for my own, if I'm in control, I don't like to have people read. It's very embarrassing for them. It's very difficult. And they read the script, maybe, the pages, but their take may be far away from my take. And then I'd want to start rehearsing with them. And those interviews could last forever. So I don't like to do that. What I like to do is talk to them, and while I'm talking to them, I'm looking at their eyes and their face and running them through the film. And just the way they talk and the way they are, some don't even get into the film. Some go away a little bit and then they fall out, and one will go all the way through. And it's the idea to get the right person for that role. And you can feel it as you talk. And Naomi Watts, I had to talk to her twice. She came to the first meeting right off the airplane from New York to LA, and she didn't look at all like her picture. And I was kind of surprised, but I knew that there was something about her, and we talked, and then I asked her to come back again with some makeup, and we talked again. And then my assistant's son was in a film with Naomi a couple of years before that, and Scott was up at the house, and Naomi came up, and they were talking and laughing. And something I saw with the two meetings and the way she was kind of freely laughing with Scott, I said, "You've got the part," and the rest is history.
Dan Corrigan, are you here? There you are. Dan Corrigan asks, what's your favorite Werner Herzog film?
Strojac.
Okay, thank you. Maria Sanfilippo, are you here? There you are. What's your favorite place to watch films, and which of the movie-going experiences of your life have been most memorable?
Well, in a theater with a big screen and great sound, that's the way to see it.
Can you think of experiences where you've seen your own movies or Sunset
No,
Boulevard?
I think a great thrill for me, when it was on TV though, I was printing engravings here in Philadelphia, and I was printing with, my friends Roger and Christine hired me to print engravings and pretty much saved my life. So Christine's mother, whom we called Flash, I would print with her. And Flash turned me on to Another World and Edge of Night. And in the afternoon, there was Dialing for Dollars. And one time, Roger came running downstairs and said, Mr. Hulot's Holiday is on this afternoon. You've got to see this. And I loved this film and loved, since then, Jacques Tati.
Okay, so we should see movies in big movie theaters except for happy accidents.
For happy accidents on black and white TV.
Okay. Is Max North here? And could he please stand? Hey, Max. Does Eraserhead mean the same thing to you today as it did when you were making it?
Yes. But what it means to me has never been said by anyone that I know of.
Can it be said by you?
No.
Okay. There you are. Okay, is Jay Seid, S-E-I-D, or Seed here? Jay? Well, I'll ask his question anyhow. When does Mr. Lynch expect to release the director's cut of Dune?
Dune is a huge sadness for me and a failure. I did not have final cut on Dune. And looking back, I've always said this, I realized I started selling out even before we started shooting, because I knew the way Dino was, and Dino had final cut. I had to adjust and compromise, and it was a thing that was making me physically sick. It was a horror. It could have been, I think, a great experience, but hiding behind all the filmmaking for 3 years was this not having final cut. So if there's any filmmakers in the audience, do not ever make a film without final cut. Totally absurd to be working on something that you can't say how it should be. Absolutely absurd.
Excellent advice. Tara Ackerman, is Tara here? Mr. Lynch, having met you on a few prior occasions, I've always been captivated by the genuine sense of wonder and joy that emanates from you. Would you say that your devotion to transcendental meditation has helped preserve this sense in you and kept you from becoming jaded by Hollywood?
I think so. When you get real happy from the inside, they say, that the nature of life is bliss, and the nature of the individual is cosmic. It's not really seen so much in our world. It's kind of amazing and kind of hopeful that this could be true, that we're supposed to be blissful beings, happy. I say like little dogs with their tails wagging, absolutely happy, getting along with one another, fulfilling our desires. And they say in the way the world could be, when you fulfill your desire, it would be very, fulfilling for you and be beneficial for all others. It's a tricky business. This world we're in now is so far away from that, but the key to that kind of life lies within, in the big treasury within each one of us human beings. And this happiness can come. And they say, look for happiness out there, and we find it from time to time. But because we live in a world of change, that happiness starts to fade. Then we look somewhere else for some more happiness. the happiness that comes from within stays and grows if you're transcending every day.
Thank you. Mark Schuster, are you here? There he is back there. Okay. How do you balance the business and creative aspects of being an artist?
You got to be real lucky because the business is run on money, and a lot of people in the business just see it as a money-making thing, entertainment to make money. And they tailor everything to get the most money. And I came to filmmaking through painting. And one thing that's kind of in common with most painters is extreme poverty. It's not about money, it's about loving to paint. And that's the way I see cinema. You get an idea you fall in love with, it's about love. You do it. At the same time, money is important to live and to keep working and get tools and get a setup so you can do those ideas that come. And it does cost a lot to make a film. And the people that put the money in, they want to get at least their money back. Hopefully they want to make a profit. So it's a tricky business. It's a very tricky business. And I appreciate everybody that's put money into my films. I don't think, except for Inland Empire, I've never lost anybody money. They haven't gotten rich from my films, but they haven't lost. I think some distributors, foreign distributors, lost on Inland Empire, and I'm sorry for that, but...
Have you noticed how much this stage looks like Inland Empire with the exit sign? When I walked in the room, I freaked out. And I don't want to know what's happening back there. Okay, John Paul Spiro, or Spiro, are you here? Scholars of your work often associate it with the ideas of Freud and Lacan. Can you speak about your familiarity with these thinkers, and are scholars projecting this on your work? Or
I don't know
what?
even the second man. I've heard of Freud.
You've heard of Jacques Lacan?
No, I never heard
okay.
of him. There's a lot of things swimming within every human being. So many things swimming that we don't see. You meet somebody, you just see the surface, and stories come from ideas come, and a lot of the ideas that come that I fall in love with have to do with those things that aren't seen. And I remember after Blue Velvet, Isabella's, I guess the father of Isabella's daughter, his mother was a psychiatrist, and she got together with 15 other psychiatrists or psychologists, and they had a thing where they each wrote a paper on what they thought Blue Velvet meant psychologically. And it was pretty interesting. I had no clue that they get so much out of it. I was just thankful that nowadays they can't lock up people, you know, like in the old days.
Serena Raymond. Is Serena here? Hi, Serena. Have any of your creations ever caused you nightmares or haunted you in any way?
No. I don't know what it is. The things can be, that's why I always said, and transcendental meditation is a little bit like being in a very nice, warm, well-lit diner. And I used to go to this Bob's Big Boy in LA and have a chocolate shake and coffee. And I like to think in a place like that, so you can go into dark places, but you can always come back to the safety of the diner. And but it's not frightening, it's more interesting to me. It's just interesting.
think most of the questions, well, actually, there's one more. Brian Douglas, are you here?
There's Brian.
Hey, Brian. What was your favorite place to eat when you lived in Philadelphia, and what was your favorite meal there?
I had a kind of a, I don't know what you call a schedule. I mostly worked at night. So I would hopefully get up in time to have my breakfast at Pop's Diner before it closed.
Where was Pop's Diner?
Right next door to where I lived, 13th and Wood.
Ah.
And I had lunch at, now I can't remember if it was White Castle or White Tower on Broad Street. It was all the guys on the night shift of the Enquirer would go in there and have something, I guess their lunch.
I think it was a White Tower. I worked at the
White
Enquirer
Tower.
for years.
And it's since been torn down, but they would tell jokes. The Philadelphia Enquirer people had many, many jokes.
Well, don't expect us to tell you any. I think Juliet has some closing words.
Okay. That's a great ramp.
Yeah.
Hi.
So pleased to meet you. Thank you so much.
Do you want this?
Yeah, I'll take it.
You don't
Wait a minute.
slide off that.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna turn around.
She won't. She's very agile.
Okay.
Well, let me thank you immensely for coming here to Bryn Mawr, where it's not so grimy and gritty, but where it's very close to Philadelphia.
Yes.
We're very happy to have had you. It was a great pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you all.
And Carrie, you asked every question in everyone's minds, and you did it beautifully, and we thank you so very much.
But that Esther Williams story will
That is
stay
the
with
best.
today.
Now, if you have not yet had enough of the wonderful films of David Lynch, I recommend that you come on Wednesday evening for a special seminar that we're having here for Mulholland Drive, and it will be led by our own Paul Wright from Cabrini College, who is one of our favorite professors. So we will tell you what it means after that seminar. Okay. And in the meantime, come back soon again to Bryn Mawr Film Institute, and thank you for coming tonight.
Good night, everybody.